Welcome to Reddit Revenge Stories. Did you know over 90% of people watch these videos but don't subscribe? If you enjoy stories of justice and payback, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to like the video if you're ready for today's story. Let's get to the story. If you had asked me 3 years ago what my life would look like, I would have painted a very different picture. I had a beautiful wife, a stable job, and a quiet little home in a cul-de-sac neighborhood where everyone waved and barbecued on weekends. I wasn't rich, but I was content. At least I thought I was. Back then, I believed in trust, loyalty, and the vows we made on our wedding day. Her name was Lauren, and for over a decade I thought she was the love of my life. We met in college. I was an engineering student with my head in the books, and she was majoring in interior design, always dressed in something colorful, her laugh lighting up every room. We clicked right away. She was the kind of woman who made you feel like you mattered. When she smiled at you, it felt like the rest of the world faded. I fell fast and hard. 2 years later, we were married. The first few years of our marriage were great. We bought our house, adopted a rescue dog, and built a life filled with weekend getaways and holiday traditions. I worked long hours as a mechanical engineer, and Lauren started her own small business staging homes for real estate agents. She worked flexible hours, which meant she was home more often than me. I didn't mind. I trusted her. But things started to change, slowly, almost imperceptibly. It wasn't some dramatic shift. It was subtle, a quiet detachment. She began spending more time on her phone, smiling at texts she wouldn't explain. She had more last-minute client meetings and started coming home later. When I asked about it, she would brush it off, saying I was being paranoid or insecure. I didn't push. I didn't want to be that husband who accuses his wife without evidence. Besides, I had no real proof. Just a gut feeling. That gut feeling turned into a knot in my stomach that wouldn't go away. I started noticing inconsistencies. One evening, she claimed she was meeting a client across town, but I saw on our shared calendar that she had an appointment listed on the opposite side of the city. When I brought it up, she said she must have forgotten to update it. I nodded, but something inside me clicked. I realized I was being lied to, and the worst part was that I couldn't even recognize the woman I had once known. The turning point came on a Saturday afternoon. She said she was going to a staging project and would be out for a few hours. I had planned to surprise her with lunch and thought I'd bring it to her work site. I called her phone, but she didn't answer. I drove to the address she gave me, but when I got there, the place was locked up. The house completely empty. There wasn't even a for sale sign out front. I sat in my car, engine running, watching the street. After 30 minutes, I texted her, asking if everything was okay. No reply. It took her 3 hours to get back to me. When she did, she said she got caught up and left her phone in the car. That was the moment I knew something was deeply wrong. I started keeping a private log of her comings and goings. I wasn't proud of it, but something told me that if I wanted the truth, I had to become someone I wasn't. I installed a tracking app on her phone. I justified it to myself by saying I had to protect my marriage. The irony still stings. What I found gutted me. She wasn't going to staging appointments. She was going to the same upscale apartment complex every few days, the same unit number, Unit 3C. I waited one afternoon and saw her go inside. 10 minutes later, a man walked out, then turned and went back in with groceries. I snapped a picture from my car, my hands shaking. He was in his late 30s, muscular, neatly dressed, the kind of guy who probably took selfies at the gym. I didn't know his name yet, but I knew he was the reason my wife had been pulling away. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I sat with the betrayal, letting it soak into my bones. I replayed our last few months over and over in my head. Every time she said, "I love you," every time she kissed me goodbye, how much of it had been real? I stopped sleeping. I'd lie in bed next to her, pretending to be asleep while she texted under the covers. The rage didn't come all at once. It grew slowly, like a storm on the horizon. I started thinking about revenge. Not the kind that ends up on the evening news, but something deeper. I didn't want to scream or destroy her car. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Confused, blindsided, hollow. So I waited. I played the part of the clueless husband. I even brought her flowers one evening just to watch her squirm under the weight of her guilt. She didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She smiled and thanked me, then placed them in a vase like nothing was wrong. I started planning carefully, methodically. If she wanted to live a double life, I would help her, but on my terms. I made copies of everything. I backed up her messages, tracked her visits to the apartment, even recorded one of their conversations from a bug I hid in her car. It was all legal. I made sure of it. I wasn't going to be sloppy. I was going to be smart, calculated. And when I had everything I needed, I started preparing my exit. I didn't want to just leave. That would be too easy. I wanted her to lose everything she had tried to gain behind my back. So I met with a lawyer, gathered all the evidence, and set things in motion quietly. I opened a separate bank account. I transferred my direct deposits. I removed myself from any shared financial liabilities. I even spoke with a realtor about putting our house up for sale. But I didn't do it yet. Timing was everything. Meanwhile, I kept pretending. I kissed her goodnight, asked her about her day, even cooked dinner a few times. And all the while, I documented everything. Her absences, her lies, her manipulations. She was so comfortable in her web of deception that she didn't notice the floor crumbling beneath her. And then came the day I was waiting for. It was a Wednesday afternoon when I received a tip from a friend who lived in the same building as Mr. Apartment 3C. He said he saw Lauren coming and going from that unit regularly, sometimes even staying the night. I thanked him and made a decision. I called in sick from work. I packed a small bag and left the house early, heading straight to the apartment building. I parked down the street and waited. Sure enough, her car pulled in a little after 10. She got out, fixed her hair in the side mirror, and walked confidently inside. I waited 15 minutes, then followed. I knocked on the door to Unit 3C. There was silence at first, then some muffled voices, then footsteps. The door opened a crack, and there he was, the gym guy. He looked confused. "Is Lauren here?" I asked calmly. His confusion deepened. Who are you?" "I'm her husband." His eyes widened, but before he could react, I stepped back, took out my phone, and showed him a picture of her and him entering the apartment together. "You might want to sit down," I said. He didn't invite me in, but he didn't close the door either. Moments later, Lauren appeared behind him, her face going pale when she saw me. It was like watching someone's soul leave their body. She tried to speak, but I held up my hand. "Save it, I just wanted to see what rock bottom looked like." Then I turned around and left. I didn't go home. I went straight to my lawyer's office, signed the final papers, and handed over the evidence. Everything I had collected. Enough to prove infidelity in court and ensure she got the bare minimum. I wasn't going to fight over the house or the car. I didn't want things. I wanted peace. But I also wanted justice. When I got home later that evening, she was there, sitting on the couch, mascara smeared, eyes red. She started crying, begging, apologizing, blaming stress, loneliness, even me. I didn't respond. I walked past her, into the bedroom, grabbed a few more things, and left without saying a word. And that was only the beginning. I didn't cry when I left that night. I didn't scream. I didn't feel any of the things I thought I would. It was almost disappointing how numb I was. But looking back now, I think that numbness was the calm before the storm. Because what came after was not just the collapse of a marriage. It was a war of silence, strategy, and slow, deliberate revenge. Not out of hatred. I wanted her to feel the sting of betrayal, not with shouting, but with absence. I wanted her to face the one thing she feared most, being exposed. I moved in with my cousin for a few weeks. I didn't tell anyone what happened right away. I let her squirm, trying to explain my absence to our neighbors, our families, our mutual friends. I knew she would try to spin the story before I could. That's why I was careful about what I said and to whom. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't badmouth her to anyone directly. I just let the rumors build on their own. People noticed I wasn't home anymore. Some reached out. I answered with vague responses like, "We're going through something," or "It's complicated right now." That was all it took. In a community like ours, vagueness is like gasoline on fire. Meanwhile, I kept collecting bank statements, her business invoices, patterns of her using our joint account to fund her little escapades. She had been slipping money to this guy, paying for dinners, Ubers, even covering his rent for a few months. He wasn't just some fling, he was a leech, and she was too blind to see it. I contacted our accountant and asked to separate our finances immediately. I told him I suspected misuse of joint assets. He hesitated but agreed once I sent him a few of the transactions. I also froze the home equity line, canceled all secondary cards in her name, and rerouted any tax documents to my temporary address. I didn't just leave. I surgically removed myself from every tie that could be used against me later. She didn't even know until her credit card was declined. A week after I left, she called me, sobbing, left a dozen voicemails. Her voice cracked under the weight of desperation. At first, she begged for a second chance. Then, when I didn't answer, she grew cold, demanding we talk like adults. I still didn't respond. She tried to guilt me by bringing up our dog, our shared history, and even my parents. That's when I knew she still hadn't accepted reality. She thought this was just a rough patch we could work through. She didn't realize I was done. Truly, irrevocably done. Eventually, her tone shifted again. This time, she sent me a long email trying to justify everything. She claimed she never meant to fall in love with someone else, that it just happened, that she felt lonely in our marriage, that I had become too absorbed in work, that she tried to resist but couldn't help herself. It was the most pitiful string of excuses I'd ever read. What struck me wasn't the betrayal. It was how deeply she refused to take responsibility. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry for getting caught. I sent her a single reply. The paperwork is with the lawyer. You'll be served soon. That was it. 2 days later, she showed up at my cousin's place. She didn't even knock, just waited outside in her car, hoping I'd come out. When I didn't, she started texting me photos of us, vacations, our wedding, our first Christmas. I blocked her number. From there, things moved fast. My lawyer served her the divorce notice. Her face must have been priceless when she realized I had documented everything. Every photo, every GPS log, every message she thought she'd deleted. She tried to deny it at first, but there was no way out. She was cornered. But the best part wasn't the evidence. It was the timing. You see, just a week before all of this, she had submitted a proposal for a big staging contract with a prominent real estate agency, the kind that could have boosted her business significantly. What she didn't know was that the head agent was a former client of mine from an engineering project. We had worked together years ago and stayed in touch. I reached out to him not to sabotage her directly, but to offer some context. I showed him the same documentation I had prepared for court, just so he'd be aware of the kind of person he might be trusting with his million-dollar homes. I didn't ask him to cancel the contract. I didn't have to. A few days later, I heard through the grapevine that they had decided to go in another direction. Her little empire was starting to crumble. But I wasn't done. I started reaching out to people we both knew. Quietly, tactfully. Friends who had been close to both of us. I didn't badmouth her. I simply told them what happened and offered to share proof if they wanted it. Most of them didn't even need to see the evidence. They believed me. Probably because deep down they had seen the signs too. They just hadn't wanted to admit it. Suddenly, her friend circle started to shrink. Invitations dried up. People stopped tagging her in photos. She became the subject of whispered conversations at yoga class and wine nights. It wasn't about humiliation. It was about truth. I wanted her to live in the reality she tried so hard to escape. Eventually, she moved out of the house. She left me a note saying she couldn't bear to stay in that place full of memories. I didn't respond. I listed the property a week later and made sure she only got her share after the mortgage and taxes were deducted. She walked away with far less than she expected. And the man she left me for? He disappeared. Probably once the money stopped coming in. I heard from a mutual friend that she tried to contact him afterward. He ghosted her, no texts, no calls, just vanished. Part of me pitied her in that moment. The other part of me smiled. I kept building my life one day at a time. Therapy helped. I started going to the gym again, not for anyone else, but for me. I picked up old hobbies: guitar, woodworking, hiking. I reconnected with people I'd lost touch with over the years. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. But revenge, real revenge, doesn't come in the form of dramatic confrontations or fiery speeches. It comes in the quiet rebuilding, in watching the person who broke you realize they no longer have any power over you. Months passed. The divorce was finalized. I didn't attend the hearing, my lawyer handled it. She tried to delay the process a few times, citing emotional stress, but the court saw through it. She got what was fair, no more, no less. Then, one evening, out of the blue, I received a letter, handwritten, no return address. It was from her. In it, she apologized, not just for cheating, but for everything, for taking me for granted, for making me feel like I wasn't enough, for letting someone else into our marriage. She admitted that the man she had left me for had used her, that after I left, everything began to fall apart. Her business suffered. Her friends distanced themselves. Her family was disappointed. She had moved into a small one-bedroom apartment and was working part-time staging condos just to get by. She ended the letter by saying she hoped I was happy, that she finally understood what she had thrown away. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Because the truth is, my revenge wasn't about making her suffer. It was about making her see, making her live with the consequences, and knowing that she had to watch me move on, grow, thrive, while she sat in the wreckage of her own choices. That was enough. But the story doesn't end there. There's one more chapter, one last twist she never saw coming. A year had passed since everything unraveled. I had settled into a new rhythm, peaceful, quiet, deliberate. My life was no longer dictated by someone else's chaos. I had bought a small fixer-upper across town and took my time renovating it by hand. Every nail, every coat of paint, every carefully placed tile felt like a brick in the foundation of my healing. Then, one morning, I received an email from a familiar name. It was the man she had left me for. He didn't say much, just that he wanted to talk. Said he had information I might want to hear. I ignored it at first. I had no interest in reopening old wounds. But a week later, curiosity got the better of me. I replied, short and direct, asking what he wanted. His answer was pathetic. He told me she had lied to him too, that she promised to leave me long before she did, claiming I was abusive, emotionally distant. He admitted he never questioned it. He believed her version because it was convenient. Said he felt used, strung along, discarded once the money dried up. He apologized. I didn't respond. I just deleted the message and blocked him. Because his regret didn't matter. Her lies didn't matter. What mattered was that I had survived it all without stooping to their level. I didn't lash out. I didn't fall apart. I rebuilt. Sometime later, I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked tired, worn down in a way that went beyond lack of sleep. Life had humbled her. We made eye contact briefly, and I saw that flicker of recognition, regret, maybe even shame. She opened her mouth to say something, but I walked past her without a word. That was my closure. Not a confrontation, not a dramatic scene. Just her knowing she no longer had access to me. No explanations, no second chances. I had taken everything she thought she controlled, our finances, our narrative, our mutual connections, and calmly, quietly, turned it against her. And I did it all without yelling, without vengeance in my eyes, just patience. In the end, my revenge was simple. I healed. She didn't.